In the last video, we examined a single granite box inside the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid. A box machined to tolerances that the tools of ancient Egypt cannot explain. A box with no lid, no body, no inscription, and no satisfactory answer for how it was made or what it was for. One box, one mystery, one set of unanswered questions that conventional archaeology has been declining to address for over a century. Now go to Saqqara, 25 kilometers south of Giza, beneath the desert, inside a network of tunnels that were buried and forgotten for over 2,000 years. There are 24 more boxes, each one carved from a single block of Aswan granite, each one weighing approximately 100 tons, each one machined, and that word is the right word, the only word that fits, to tolerances of a fraction of a millimeter. Each one, when measured by precision engineers, showing the same impossible accuracy as the box in the king's chamber. 24 of them, in a row, in the dark. The official explanation is that they were used to bury sacred bulls. The official explanation has problems so significant, so numerous, and so fundamental that a growing number of researchers have stopped accepting it entirely. Because the more carefully you look at the Serapeum of Saqqara, the more carefully you measure its boxes, trace its history, examine its construction, and ask the questions that the official explanation leaves unanswered, the more clearly you see that something happened here that our current understanding of ancient history cannot account for. Something was built at Saqqara that required granite machined to aerospace tolerances, 24 times, and nobody in 2,500 years of recorded history has been able to explain why. The Serapeum of Saqqara was rediscovered in 1851 by a French Egyptologist named Auguste Mariette. Rediscovered, not discovered, because the ancient Greeks knew about it. The geographer Strabo, writing in the 1st century BC, described a path at Saqqara lined with sphinxes, partially buried in sand, leading to a temple complex dedicated to Serapis, a composite deity combining elements of the Egyptian gods Osiris and Opis with Greek religious forms. Strabo noted that the sand was always encroaching, always burying things that should be visible, and that travelers had to be careful not to lose the path. Mariette, working from Strabo's description, followed the sphinxes through the sand and found what Strabo had described: the entrance to an underground complex that the sand had buried so completely that it had been inaccessible for centuries. What he found inside stopped him. A tunnel, cut into the bedrock of the Saqqara Plateau, running for over 300 meters. Branching galleries extending from the main tunnel, each ending in a large rectangular chamber. And in each chamber, a box. 24 boxes, each carved from Aswan granite, each weighing approximately 100 tons, each sitting in its own chamber cut precisely to accommodate it. Most of the boxes were sealed, their lids, each weighing approximately 27 tons, sitting in place over the main body of the box. A few were open, their lids displaced or missing. Mariette spent years excavating the complex. He found, inside the open boxes, fragments of bone, animal bone, consistent with cattle, along with some grave goods, some inscriptions on the walls of the chambers, and evidence of ritual use. The Egyptian authorities declared the complex solved. The Serapeum was a burial place for the Apis bulls, sacred animals considered divine manifestations of the god Ptah, whose deaths were mourned as national events and whose bodies were mummified and buried with elaborate ceremony. Case closed. Except it wasn't. The Apis bull burial explanation is not wrong in its basic framework. There is evidence of bull burials at Saqqara from the New Kingdom period onward, roughly from 1500 BC. Inscriptions in the Serapeum galleries reference bulls. Bone fragments consistent with cattle have been found. The connection between the site and the cult of the Apis bull is documented and real. But the explanation has a problem. Actually, it has several. The first problem is the boxes themselves. A 100-ton granite box, machined to tolerances of a fraction of a millimeter, with interior corners cut to right angles, accurate to within 0.02 of an inch, is not a coffin. It is not what you build to bury an animal, however sacred. The effort required to quarry a 100-ton block of Aswan granite, transport it 800 kilometers to Saqqara, lower it into an underground tunnel, and machine it to tolerances that modern engineers struggle to replicate. That effort is not proportionate to the purpose of storing a mummified bull. You could bury an Apis bull in a limestone box, in a wooden sarcophagus, in a pit in the ground, in any of the dozens of burial formats that ancient Egypt used for animals of religious significance. You would not need 100 tons of precision-machined granite. Not once, not twice, not 24 times. The scale and the precision of the boxes are wildly disproportionate to the stated purpose. This is the first problem. The second problem is the lids. The lids of the Serapeum boxes each weigh approximately 27 tons. They fit the boxes with a precision that, when measured, shows tolerances consistent with the boxes themselves. Flat surfaces, right-angle corners, dimensional accuracy that conventional Old Kingdom tools cannot explain. And they fit perfectly. Not approximately, not closely, perfectly. When the lid is seated on the box, the joint between them is so precise that a piece of paper cannot be inserted between the granite surfaces. This is a level of fit that, in modern manufacturing, is called a precision ground surface, achieved with diamond grinding wheels and precision measurement equipment, calibrated to fractions of a millimeter. It is not achieved by hand. It is not achieved by copper tools and stone abrasives. It is not achieved by any method that conventional Egyptology attributes to the civilization that supposedly built these boxes. And yet here they are, 24 of them. Each lid fitting its box with a precision that modern engineers examine and cannot fully explain. The third problem is the logistics. Each box weighs 100 tons. Each lid weighs 27 tons. The tunnel in which they sit is not large. It is wide enough for a person to walk comfortably, but not wide enough to maneuver a 100-ton granite block without extraordinary precision. Getting each box into its chamber required lowering it down a shaft from the surface, maneuvering it through the main tunnel, turning it into the side gallery, and positioning it precisely in the chamber, prepared to receive it. All without the mechanical advantage of wheeled vehicles, without steel cables, without hydraulic equipment, and without the kind of lifting machinery that modern construction takes for granted. Engineers who have studied the logistics of moving the Serapeum boxes have concluded that the task, even with modern equipment, would be extraordinarily difficult. The tolerances of the tunnel and the chambers are so tight that positioning a 100-ton block inside them without damaging the walls would require millimeter-level control of the block's movement. With ropes, wooden sledges, and human labor, the toolkit that conventional Egyptology assigns to the builders, the task is not simply difficult, it may be impossible. Not one box, not twice, not even 10 times, but 24 times, in a tunnel that allows almost no margin for error, to a precision that requires measuring equipment that the builders supposedly did not possess. The fourth problem is the most disturbing of all. Some of the Serapeum boxes are older than the Apis bull cult. The Apis bull burial tradition at Saqqara is documented from approximately the reign of Amenhotep III in the 14th century BC. The inscriptions in the galleries, the grave goods, the dating of the bone fragments, these are consistent with the New Kingdom period and later. But the boxes themselves, when researchers have examined them carefully, looking at the geological weathering of the granite, the style of their construction, the evidence of their age independent of the artifacts found inside them, some of the boxes show signs of being significantly older than the New Kingdom burials that used them. Significantly older, which raises a possibility that the Apis bull burial explanation cannot accommodate. The boxes were already there. When the priests of the New Kingdom began using the Serapeum galleries for Apis bull burials, they were not moving into a facility they had built. They were moving into a facility that already existed. Tunnels already cut. Chambers already prepared. Boxes already in place. They were using something that someone else had built, for purposes they may not have fully understood, because the boxes were already there, and the chambers were already cut, and the infrastructure already existed. This is not a proven conclusion. The dating evidence is suggestive rather than definitive, and mainstream Egyptology disputes the interpretation. But if it is correct, if the Serapeum boxes predate the Apis bull tradition by centuries or millennia, then the question of who built them, and why, and with what tools, becomes completely open. Not Old Kingdom pharaohs with copper chisels, something earlier. Something with capabilities that the Old Kingdom did not have, or that the Old Kingdom inherited from a civilization that came before it. The same civilization, perhaps, that built the Sphinx, that aligned the pyramids to the stars of Orion's belt as they appeared in 10,500 BC, that placed a precisely machined granite box at the center of the world's largest monument, and built 2.3 million stone blocks around it. The civilization that keeps appearing at the edges of Egypt's most inexplicable achievements, and then disappearing before we can see it clearly. Stand inside the Serapeum and try to understand what you are looking at. You are in a tunnel cut into bedrock 30 feet below the desert surface. The tunnel is dark, lit today by electric lights that Mariette's excavators did not have. The air is dry and still, and smells of stone and ancient dust. On either side of you, recessed into the walls at regular intervals, are the entrances to side chambers. Each chamber is cut precisely to the dimensions of the box it contains. Each box sits in its chamber like an object placed there by someone who knew exactly what they were doing and had done it before. The boxes are enormous. Standing beside one, you understand the scale in a way that photographs cannot convey. The lid alone, 27 tons of precision-machined Aswan granite, sits above you at shoulder height. The walls of the box rise above the lid. The total mass of granite in each box and lid combination is approximately 127 tons, and there are 24 of them, in a tunnel that stretches for hundreds of meters through the bedrock of the Saqqara Plateau. Mariette found some of them open. He found bone fragments inside. He found grave goods. He found the evidence that led him, and the Egyptological establishment after him, to declare the mystery solved. But he also found something that the official explanation has never fully addressed. He found boxes that were empty, not stripped by grave robbers. The lids were still in place, still sealed with the same precision with which they had been fitted. But inside, when the lids were opened, there was nothing. No bull, no mummy, no grave goods, no sign that anything had ever been placed inside. Empty boxes, sealed with 27-ton lids, in chambers cut to their exact dimensions, in tunnels buried under the desert for 2,000 years. The official explanation says these boxes were prepared for future burials that never happened, that the Apis bull cult was declining by the Ptolemaic period, and some of the prepared chambers were simply never used. The alternative explanation is simpler and more disturbing. These boxes were never intended for burials. They were always empty, because what they were built to do did not require anything to be inside them. In the previous video, we examined the possibility that the granite box in the king's chamber was not a funerary vessel, but a functional device, machined to precise tolerances for acoustic or energetic purposes that we have not yet identified. The Serapeum boxes are consistent with that interpretation. They are machined to the same tolerances. They are made from the same material, piezoelectric Aswan granite, containing quartz crystal that generates electrical charge when mechanically stressed. They are placed in an underground tunnel system cut into the bedrock of the Saqqara Plateau, a plateau that sits within the same geological and geographical complex as Giza, connected by the same limestone and granite substrate that underlies the entire area. 24 resonant granite chambers, placed in a precise underground arrangement, connected by tunnels that run for hundreds of meters through the bedrock. If a single granite box in the king's chamber could serve as a resonator, as a device that converts acoustic or mechanical energy into something else, then 24 such boxes, arranged in a network of interconnected tunnels, could serve as something significantly more powerful. Not a burial ground, a facility, built for a purpose that the civilization that used it for bull burials did not understand or did not want to explain. This series has taken us from a locked chapel in Ethiopia to sealed tunnels beneath Jerusalem, to hidden voids in the Great Pyramid, to underwater chambers beneath the Sphinx, to a shaft with a sealed door that 30 million people watched being discovered, and that has not been opened in 20 years. At each location, the pattern has been the same. Something exists that should not exist by the standard model of history. The explanation offered is insufficient. The investigation stops before the most important questions are answered. The Serapeum of Saqqara is the most concentrated version of that pattern in the entire series. 24 impossible objects in a single location, built to a standard that their supposed makers could not achieve, for a purpose that their supposed function does not require. The bull burial explanation absorbs the inconvenient details and moves on, but the boxes don't move. They sit in their chambers, precisely fitted, precisely made, silent and dark, and exactly as extraordinary as they were the day they were put there. By hands we cannot identify. Using tools we cannot locate. For purposes we cannot explain. The Serapeum of Saqqara is not a tomb. It is a question. 24 times over. Sealed in granite. Waiting in the dark beneath the desert. For an answer that the official history of ancient Egypt has not yet been willing to give. Auguste Mariette spent years excavating the Serapeum. He removed artifacts, documented chambers, cataloged finds, and published his results. He was a careful, thorough archaeologist by the standards of his time. But there is something he noted in his excavation records that has received almost no attention in the century and a half since he wrote it. Several of the Serapeum boxes, when he examined them, showed signs of machining marks on their interior surfaces. Not chisel marks, not the irregular, slightly curved traces of abrasive grinding, but straight, consistent, directional marks, the kind of marks left by a cutting tool moving in a controlled, linear direction across a hard surface, the kind of marks left by a machine. Mariette noted the marks. He did not know what to make of them. He moved on. His records were archived. The marks were not followed up on, because in 1851, the idea that ancient Egyptians might have used machine tools was not a category of explanation that any respectable archaeologist could entertain. It still isn't in mainstream archaeology. But the marks are still there. On the interior surfaces of boxes that sit 100 meters below the desert, in tunnels that have been sealed for most of recorded history, made by something that moved in straight lines across granite with a consistency and control that human hands holding hand tools do not produce. There is a researcher named Brian Forster who has spent years measuring and documenting the Serapeum boxes with modern precision instruments. Forster is not a mainstream archaeologist. He works outside the institutional framework of professional Egyptology. His conclusions are disputed. His methods are questioned. He does not have the credentials that the academic establishment requires before it takes someone seriously. But his measurements are documented, his instruments are calibrated, and his results, which he has published and made available for scrutiny, show the same tolerances that Christopher Dunn found in the King's chamber box, replicated across multiple Serapeum boxes. Flat surfaces accurate to within fractions of a millimeter. Interior corners at right angles, to within tolerances achievable only with precision grinding equipment. Dimensional consistency across boxes that were supposedly made by hand, one at a time, by craftsmen working with copper tools and stone abrasives. You can dispute Forster's interpretation. You can question his credentials. You can point to the limitations of his methodology. But the numbers he produces are the numbers that show up when you measure the boxes carefully enough. And those numbers don't change based on who does the measuring. The boxes are precisely made. That is not an interpretation. That is a measurement. Here is the question this series has been building toward, not just for the Serapeum, but for everything we have examined across 10 videos. We have found, at multiple sites in multiple countries, evidence of capabilities that the standard model of ancient history does not account for. Granite machine to aerospace tolerances in the King's chamber. 24 100-ton granite boxes machined to the same tolerances in the Serapeum. A monument aligned to the stars with an accuracy that required knowledge of precession, a phenomenon that takes 26,000 years to complete a full cycle. Underground chambers at Giza, confirmed by multiple independent scientific surveys, whose existence has been acknowledged and whose investigation has been refused. Sealed doors in the Great Pyramid discovered on live television and not opened for over 20 years. An Ark of the Covenant in a locked chapel guarded by a single monk who will never leave. Tunnels beneath the Temple Mount, sealed by the weight of political consequences, too dangerous to manage. A hall of records beneath the Sphinx, predicted by a man in a trance state and confirmed by seismic surveys, access to which has been systematically denied. The pattern across all of these sites is not conspiracy in the simple sense. It is not a single organization pulling strings. It is something more fundamental. It is the accumulated resistance of human institutions, religious, political, academic, national, to a conclusion that the evidence, taken as a whole, is pushing toward. That the history we have been taught is incomplete. That before the civilizations we know, before Egypt, before Sumer, before the oldest cultures that our textbooks acknowledge, there was something else, something that built the Sphinx, that aligned the pyramids to stars as they appeared 12,000 years ago, that machined granite to tolerances we struggle to replicate today, that placed 24 100-ton boxes in an underground tunnel at Saqqara for purposes that a civilization that came after them could not understand and so explained as bull burials. We do not know who they were. We do not know where they came from. We do not know where they went. But the evidence of what they built is still here, in the stone, in the tolerances, in the alignment to stars that no living person has seen in the pre-dawn sky, in the boxes that sit in the dark beneath the desert, precisely made and inexplicably empty, waiting for a civilization advanced enough to understand what it is looking at. We have the tools to look. We have the instruments to measure. We have found the sites and confirmed the anomalies and documented the impossibilities. What we have not yet found is the will to follow the evidence to where it leads, to open the sealed doors, to enter the chambers, to ask, without flinching, the question that the Serapeum of Saqqara has been asking for as long as it has existed, 24 times over, in granite, in the dark. Who built this? And what was it for?